So welcome everyone to the Apra Maryland 2021 Fall Conference. Really happy everyone can join us today. We have an exciting lineup, and especially this hour with Karen Osborne. I'll be introducing her in a minute. But first, we have a special guest here, Sarah Tedesco, who is with Donor Search. And Donor Search has been a long time key partner for Apra Maryland, has helped us keep our lights on. And even this last 2 years with the pandemic, they have provided us the ability to have the free platform to really focus on inclusivity as educational funds have gone down for nonprofits, professional support, and all of that. So we are just really excited to have them as such an important partner. And Sarah, I'm going to go ahead and let you share for a few minutes before we go to Karen.
I really appreciate that, Joanna. And yes, Donor Search is a longtime sponsor of Apra Maryland, and we love you guys. We're happy to help fund, this wonderful organization, but also at the same time, participate and learn from each and every one of you, because everybody gets to bring such amazing insight. And also very grateful to introduce you, Karen. You're going to have a wonderful presentation. So let me just pull up my screen here real quick. I just have a couple of notes here just to kind of introduce you guys to Donor Search. If you are not familiar, we are definitely based here in Maryland, but as 2020 has occurred and all of this movement and changes, we've been able to hire all over the country. So believe it or not, we have about 75 different employees, and we're represented in every single time zone in the US, actually not Hawaiian time zone, unfortunately, sadly, but we do have folks everywhere. And we're very proud to be here. So we are a family-owned company, and we actually provide prospect research and data solutions to nonprofits everywhere. And our claim to fame has been, our giving you access to the single largest philanthropic database in the world. And this is something that was really the beginning of our mission when we started Donor Search, was to be able to highlight, who is known for their philanthropy, who are those great major gift prospects that you can reach out to and talk to engage and bring them into your organization to make an impact. We work with about 6,700 different clients, and we have integrations with all different types of CRMs. Some of the solutions that we're bringing to you today are screening, predictive analytics, and modeling. We also do a lot of relationship mapping. And our claim to fame this year has actually been our AI solution, Donor Search Aristotle, which I'll share a little bit with you regarding that. We, of course, have different sorts of tools that can help you either with acquisition or the different departments within your organization, whether that's your annual fund, plan gift, major gift. It's really, whatever need or sort of challenge that you're trying to overcome, we have a solution for you. The 35 different CRMs that we have integrations with include, Donor Perfect, Bloomerang, Salesforce, Razor's Edge. These are just a couple of the organizations that we work with. And actually, our friend Andy Suter used to be a huge part of that. And I believe Frank Choi is on the call too. But our goal is to make sure that that data is easily accessible to each and every one of you. So that way, you can continue to improve your processes throughout the organization. One of the other things that we do really, really well is we actually have this very fast processing for screening. So we've actually improved this tool throughout the years and have made it so that if you have a list of 10,000 records that you want to get screened, you'll have that within just a few hours. So really what it's happened is, with all the technology innovations, is it's become limitless. And we're starting to see that, not only with this fast file processing tool, but also through the different connections that we have when it comes to the donor identification. We also, when it comes down to identifying your best candidates, the proprietary match logic that Donor Search provides for its clients allows you to basically understand your constituents, not only their wealth, but also their philanthropy, and pull all of those different data insights together. So that way, you know who you're talking to. This is something that we're constantly improving and have worked with a lot of our different clients to make sure that you're getting this accurate information and you can work with, the people that can and will make a difference within your nonprofit. A difference within your nonprofit. So a little bit of an echo there. But so really what I wanted to share with you today is an introduction to Donor Search Aristotle, which is our artificial intelligence tool. This is something we're super excited and passionate about. As you just heard in my voice, I'm getting excited just thinking about it already. So the idea here, and I love this quote by Mark Twain because it says, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the things you do now, right? So it's this whole idea of no regrets, right? Like, what can you do to improve the processes within your organization? We all went through 2020 and we all had our very own unique experiences about the different challenges that we were faced with. Some of them are common, amongst all of our organizations, but some of them were different. Some of them were unique to you or to your nonprofit. But how do we do things to get better results? So Donor Search Aristotle, our AI solutions, is just the beginning of that. It's to help us overcome these challenges where it's understanding who can and who will make a gift to your nonprofit. So one of the things that I like to do here is, put on this scale, and the scale is to highlight, we're all very different at adopting and embracing technology, right? When we talk about AI, we hear artificial intelligence, we hear robots, we hear all different kinds of things that come to mind. But the truth is that we're using AI every single day, right? Your phone is, constantly collecting data on you. You're getting your sentences, helping you fill that out. You go to Netflix and you're getting these different recommendations. It's pulling in all of these different data points together so that you have, an easier time making decisions. So this scale here basically highlights that, each of us are very different at adopting it. You have your enthusiasts, your visionaries who are ready to start AI and they're ready to bring it into their system. And then you have the pragmatists, and then you have the conservatives, and of course, skeptics. So I like to put this out here to highlight, no matter where you are on the scale, it's important to understand, because as you start to hear more about this technology, it'll help you decide, how do we incorporate this into our system? So the whole goal here is to accelerate, where you are now and get to a point where you can make decisions and act faster than traditionally. All of the for-profit organizations are using AI, right? Our nonprofit sector is a little bit slower to adopt it, but that's okay because, we want to understand how it works. So it's this whole idea of not being limited to just wealth data points, not limited to just giving patterns, or using traditional RFM models. It's this whole idea of bringing in limitless amounts of data so that we can understand and model who we should be talking to. And the goal here is that you're able to bring in all of these different fields, bring it to the different machine learning algorithms so that it begins to learn off of each of those different data points. And then your information gets smarter and your results get smarter. So this is an example of, if you were a healthcare system, looking at all of these different data points or that are in different systems, bringing it together, you now have 1,000 different features on an individual. And what it does is it calculates, who is likely to give based off of all of these different indicators compared to your current donors. And we're able to do that actually for non-donors as well as current donors. And of course, you can use it for higher ed as well as the healthcare system. And it's just pulling it all together so that way you can have actionable insights without having to be slowed down by these different systems or even just the amount of data. So it's really exciting because what it does then do is it puts it into basically a format that allows you to make the decisions of who you should be talking to, high capacity, high likelihood to give versus those areas of opportunity that might need a little bit more cultivation. So that is a very quick summary, very quick introduction to Donor Search and Donor Search Aristotle. We would love to hear more from you guys if you're interested in getting a demo from, the masterminds behind that, as well as even just a quick understanding of how Donor Search works. Let us know, give us a quick shout. You can email or check us out on our website, and we'd be happy to do that for you. So with that, I will pass the reins over to Joanna and Karen.
Thank you, Sarah. And you can actually learn more about AI work that Donor Search is doing at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. So please feel free to jump in for that. And thank you so much for your support. I'd like to switch gears now to introduce Karen. Karen has done it all in philanthropy. She's done major gifts, principal gifts. She's been the VP at the university level. The last 25 years, she served as a consultant, as president of the Osborne Group. And she has recently really kind of led the way in chasing your dreams and has started publishing books. And I've read 2 of them. The most recent was Tangled Lies. You might have seen my LinkedIn with me reading it on vacation in West Virginia. And they're great, just mystery relaxation books. And we're actually going to be doing some giveaways today. So if you're participating in chat while Karen talks, you will be eligible to receive the book in the mail for free. So we're going to give a couple of her books away. Really talking about LinkedIn, I recommend you find Karen on LinkedIn and follow her because she is the most inspirational person, and you're going to walk away as an inspired and smarter person because she always has such great insightful post and just really encouraging. I first met Karen when she was my professor at Johns Hopkins. So she's definitely teaching the next generation of those in philanthropy. And she was the professor who just really connected with her students. And she has that transcendent capability just to reach people and see people for who they are and to elevate them to the next level. And even though I had her several years ago, this last year when I was going through some things in my career, Karen was someone I reached out to. And that's not, I probably only talked to just a couple of people, but Karen was on that list, even though it had been several years, just because she is just one that makes you a better person. So I'm just really delighted that Karen is here to share with us about kind of navigating that change, in which we all know we're experiencing. I did also want to let you all know that this session is going till 2 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock we're going to start the next session, and then at 2:45 there will be the break. So this session is a little bit special in terms of the time differences. But all that said, Karen, thank you so much for being here and joining us today and sharing some of your wisdom and life with the audience today.
Thank you so much, Joanna, so much. Joanna is modest. I was so pleased to connect with her because she was one of my very, very, very best students. So I loved connecting with her, and I'm so glad she reached out and invited me to come. And I have spoken to various Apras before and have always enjoyed it and learned something. And I thought that intro was very good. Our sponsor, that was really interesting, wasn't it? We got really good information. So here's what's going to happen in the next 45 minutes. I've broken the session into like 2 halves, and one focuses all on you, things that you can do to enhance your own superpowers. And the second half is focused on how you can use those superpowers to influence other people and get them to do what you need them to do. Because it can be very frustrating to be in a position where so much of your work depends on how other people use it, how other people think about it, how other people talk to you. So we want to help you gain that power, that seat at the table, that voice that says, I have something important to offer. So I'm going to share my screen. There it is. Among other things, right? Okay. So I wanted to start, and remember, just use your chat. You can use, there are 2 Q&As, but you should write your questions as they come to you. So the first question I have for you to put into your chat is, when you think of the word disruption, what emotions, what words, what comes to mind? Just type real fast. Just type into the chat box. What disruption? What comes to mind when you hear that word? Because that's what we've been. We've been disrupted for 20 months and still ongoing. So just chat in whatever words come to mind. Oops. What are some of the words we see, Joanna?
So a lot about stress, burnout, chaos. There are a few people who like disruption, who see it as progress or something to like, but a lot of people just talk about kind of that frustration of that it causes.
Yes, indeed. So I'm glad that there's some people who see it the other way too. We're going to talk about both. So what happens when we're anxious, when things feel, disrupted, is the self-talk that we give ourselves comes from a stress hormone flooding our brain. What can I do to save myself? This is a mess. I need to know what's happening. I need to know every minute what's happening. We tend to focus more narrowly on the immediate, like what's right in front of me, because it's too hard to think about the future, and it's too hard and scary to think about other things going on. And I need to be certain, I need to be right, I need to avoid threats, so I'm just going to hide. I need to be prepared to act. And so we just stay in this anxious brain place. And I have to admit that I'm very susceptible to this. I try to portray this positive, can-do attitude, but I've got in the back of my mind, well, when's that shoe gonna drop? When's that other thing gonna happen? It's very human. When we get swamped with anxious brain, we tend not to be as effective. So we have to pivot. We have to pivot. And that's your first power. We're going to be talking about all the powers that you have, we have. And one of our powers is the ability to pivot. And we are going to pivot to curious brain, to learner brain, where oxytocin floods us and it decreases fear, and it adds trust, and it taps into our trust and our generosity. Oh, okay, but I'm also stimulated when I'm learning new things. And I like novel experiences. That's right. This isn't all scary and terrible. And you know what? I don't have to focus narrowly. I can look out a little bit and see what else is going on and how I can impact what else is going on. And you know what I'm good at? I'm good at putting things in order and making comparisons and bringing new insights to the people around me. And I'm very good at looking at patterns and coming from those patterns, seeing answers and solutions. And, I can determine cause and effect. I can see why that's happening. And I can remember to reward myself when I figure things out, that I can say, good job. So we want to pivot from that anxiety to that curiosity. And most of you are curious people. You would be terrible at your jobs if you weren't curious people. You wouldn't be really good researchers. You wouldn't be good analysts of information. So you're good at curious. You just got to pivot out of that anxious brain. And the reason that's so important is because emotions, our emotions, what we're feeling, affects how we think, right? Which affects how we behave, which impacts our performance. People who have a high emotional intelligence, a high EI, EQ, however you think about it, they have great control over their emotions. And that's a learned skill. I can remember being a new manager and all that anxious brain at work. And I would get myself worked up, and I wanted to just be calm and portray and speak to my boss in a really intelligent and good way. But when you don't have control over your emotions, things come out sideways. They come out, they jump out at you in different ways. And so here he is having this intelligent conversation with me, and I'm Miss Calm and quiet and stuff. And then he asked me a question, and I said, well, why would you ask me that? Because we have not gotten control of those emotions. So emotions get us thinking, affect our behavior and our performance. We have to pivot. We have to pivot. The second power that I'm going to talk to you about, some people find scary. So let's just read Stephen Covey. You have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, not apologetically, to say no. And the way you do that is by having a bigger yes. Now, I don't want you to say no in a career limiting way. This is not, but one of the reasons that our anxiety stays high, and one of the reasons that we don't feel like we have any power, one of the reasons we can feel buffeted by other people's emergencies and issues, is because we think we can't say no. I don't know if that's true for all of you. I'm sure there are people in our audience that's good at this, and I hope you will help and teach your colleagues. But for a lot of us, we're people pleasers. And for a lot of us, saying no is scary. So to be able to unleash the second power, your first power is to be able to pivot from anxiety to curiosity. Your second power is the ability to say no to something because really it's a yes. And here's the thinking you go through before you say that no. The thing that I want to say yes to contributes to our mission and vision, and it helps me achieve a high priority goal. And it's in keeping with our shared and institutional values, and it's tied to my plan. And it's going to have a really high return on investment. So it's okay for me to say no to that, because the yes I have meets these criteria. And notice the one on the bottom, which I probably should have been on the top. You are also a high priority. Your priority, your health, your well-being, your career, you are part of that bigger yes. So sometimes saying no, I don't know if you have any folks on your team or above you in the bigger team who are night people. Night people. So night people spend the evening typing emails to everybody else. And then they go to sleep because it's off their mind. It's gone. And you wake up, and what's the first thing that hits you are like 12 emails from night people. You don't have to answer them first thing in the morning. If that's your critical thinking time, you don't have to answer them then, because you've got a bigger yes, you have something else to do. Or maybe because you are a slower waker-upper and you need to exercise, or you need at least that third cup of coffee, whatever it is, you're a priority too. And you have power to control your no so that you can say yes. So let me give you some tips. So one tip for saying no is it's like a sandwich. Yes, that sounds like I can understand from your point of view that that's really important, or that sounds like it is really important. No, I can't do it right now. I can't do it right now because, and then you have, right? You have your what's more important things, but let's revisit this. Yes, no, yes. Yes, I get it. No, I'm not going to do it. But yes, we can revisit it. Or say it's your boss. It's somebody who you don't think you could do yes, no, yes to. The other power you have is you don't have to commit right away. When somebody comes, I was always one of those managers that would come zipping into my head of stewardship. I loved her, Margaret. And I would come running into Margaret's office and I'd say, Margaret, I have this great idea. You know what we should do? We should do this and we should do that. And Margaret would just keep her fingers on her computer because that's what she was doing when I interrupted her with my great idea. And she would look at me and she'd say, Karen, I need time to reflect on that. And I'd say, oh, okay. So you'll reflect. Okay. And I would leave. Margaret didn't get sucked into, oh my goodness, now I have to listen to my crazy boss. Because she has a new idea every minute. And how am I going to get all those ideas? You know, she would just look at me and say politely, Karen, I need time to reflect on that. And that's a really good answer. And then you can take some time to prepare a response. How are you going to react to your boss? How are you going to react to this urgent request, someone else's urgency? And you can think about some alternatives that you could offer them. I had a wonderful researcher, Darius, and Darius, we're still friends. 25 years passed and we're still buds, but he was young and new and he didn't have a door that he could close. He worked in a cubby. And he sat down and he said, Karen, they just bombard me. They bombard me, especially the major gift officers. They just make me crazy. They're just always asking, you know, I need this, I need this, I need this. And I said, well, let's prepare some responses. It's yes, if they fall under and you decide on the criteria that makes sense. It's let me spend a quick and dirty. Let me spend, half hour on it. That I could do that. Or here's a list of things that you could do to take care of it yourself. And what were the criteria that, that the request had to meet and get that response. And that changed his whole work. It changed everything. He just put the sign up on the outside of his cubby. And it just said, yes, I'll take care of it right now. I'll give it a half hour. And here's a resource. Go do it yourself. Good luck, right? It really worked. And then you get back. So you think about the alternatives and you get back. The next power that you need to unleash is and I'm going to pause for questions very shortly. The next power that you're going to unleash is understanding your strengths. It is very hard to correct weaknesses. Not that you should ignore them, especially if they are mission critical, but it's easier and more powerful to work on your strengths, to be even better. I learned math at a time when girls were told they didn't need math, they shouldn't think about math, and so I just thought I was bad at math and I never really loved it or embraced it. And then I found myself having to do budgets, having to manage a big operation, and money was all part of that. And it was a weakness. And so I would spend hours trying, hours, until finally my husband looked at me and he said, why don't you delegate that? Why don't you get somebody to help you with that? Take something off someone else's plate and give them that on your team to help you. It's easier to build on strengths than it is to fix problems. So you want to get some feedback from trusted others. What am I good at? Do I present myself in a way that's powerful and compelling? Do I ask good questions? Am I a good listener? What are the things you're worried about? What are the skills you think you need the most? And then seek feedback. Feedback is hard. It's scary. I'm an author, and as Joanna mentioned to you, and oh my goodness, you're putting yourself out there all the time for criticism. I mean, all the time. And people you don't even know, your book is just out in the world and people are typing reviews on Amazon. And, you just have to ask yourself, is there something for me to learn from this? And not be afraid of feedback. Seek feedback from trusted others, not your enemies, but trusted others. And then from that feedback, you want to kind of build a plan. What will I build on? What are the strengths? Wow. And what's so good about this feedback is that people are going to share things that you didn't even realize they perceived as one of your strengths. How cool would that be? You know, you're going to hear positive things that, I didn't think that was one of my strengths, but I guess it is. You know, that's good to know. Good to know. So that's a really important piece. So here's our action steps for this first part, and then we'll go to Q&A. Identify your strengths, practice pivoting from anxiety to curiosity, seek feedback, make a plan, practice saying no nicely, identify a buddy, hold yourself accountable, celebrate success. And remember, you will never, ever speak to anyone more than you speak to yourself in your head. So be kind to yourself. All right, Joanna, we're open for Q&A. Are there any questions for us?
This is all really wonderful. And we've had a lot of chat about people just really affirming the importance of what you said. And one of the questions is, when you are dealing with that feedback and that question of, is it helpful or not? If you're in a situation where you feel like you're kind of getting inundated with negative feedback, how do you kind of respond to that? And, you talked about pivoting. Is that one of the ways, but how do you make sure it doesn't kind of start tearing you down?
Yeah, so that's such a great question. And one of the ways to pivot when people are giving you information, one of the great skills, and you guys are already good at this, is to ask a question instead. So somebody is saying, well, I just wanted to say that didn't go well. That presentation really didn't go well, Karen. And I was very disappointed, and I thought, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So instead of jumping in defend mode or apology mode, those are two ways that often we respond, like, well, you told me and what I was trying to do, or, okay, I'm sorry. Instead of responding like that, you say, may I ask you a few questions? Oh, well, sure. Well, my understanding was this. And what part of that do you think worked in the presentation? Because this was the goal. And what parts of the presentation do you think reinforced the goals? What turned out well? Oh, well, you did this well and that well. And yeah, well, that was true, and now you're here. You just changed the conversation. You went from anxiety brain to curiosity brain, and you started asking questions. Questions is another power. It's a powerful tool. And just pause a minute. And then the way you structure a question, you want to structure it for positive response. So when you're seeking feedback, you don't say, tell me everything I did wrong. You say, what went well? What do you think went well? Yeah.
That's great. Heather Culp had the question of, how do you engage allies?
Well, we're going to talk about that. So could you hold that question? Because that's going to be part of our next section. We're going to talk about how you influence other people. And we're specifically going to talk about allies, champions, sponsors. Yes. So just hold that question.
All right, we'll do one more question. So Lillian Snortland said, it's important to play to your strengths. I feel like many positions in nonprofits expect you to comfortably wear all hats and be super workers who just push through and learn everything, even if it's one of your weaknesses. If not, you're not good fit for the job. How do you work through these vulnerabilities with your bosses or yourself?
Yes. So one of the things that's really important, but you can do this, I was going to say early on when you're first hired for a job, but you can do this at any point. And Joanna, I actually have a tool that goes with this. And so I will send it to you and we can make it available to everybody. But on one column is, here's your understanding of the important tasks that need to be done. Not your trees, but your forests. Here are my big areas of responsibility. The next column is, here's how much time I think, what percentage of my time, based on importance and how time consuming the activity is. Here's the percentage of time that I think I should do. And then you go to your boss. Oh, and then, excuse me, column 3, here's what's actually happening. Here's how much time I'm actually spending on it. And then the last column is to sit down and have that conversation with your boss, not when things are hot, not when they've just criticized you, not when they've said, you need to get better at this and you need to fix this and this is a problem. You got to do it during a good positive time and say, I would like to just go over this and make sure that I have an understanding of what my priorities really are, my big picture priorities, and how much time I should spend on them. And you can see how much time I am spending. And I just want to see if that you agree with that. The things that are out of sync, how do we fix that together? How do we work out the things that are out of sync? That lets you then take and look at and say, okay, to do these big things that my boss agrees are my priorities, what skills do I need? And how good am I at those things? And is there, and because you've done your strengths, you looked at your strengths. I don't know, there's a good book called, here it is. I have it right on the shelf here. This is a really good book. Now Discover Your Strengths. It's really good to go through that. And now you're going to look and see and say, okay, here's a skill area that she criticized that has a direct impact on this goal. So I really need to work on that. But these other 3 things, I don't see how they fit in. Ask a question again. You said I need to get better at, and I wondered which of the top priorities that you've told me I have, requires that. And you just want to do it not from a defensive place, right? You want to do it from a place of, I really want to understand. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to agree with everything. You ask follow-up questions. Questions are your friend.
It's a good thing to remember. All right, we can keep going and then we'll have time for more questions. If you all want to just put your questions in chat, I'll keep track of them and we can circle back to those.
That's right. And remember, the more you participate in chat, free signed book.
I'm tracking it.
So now we're going to talk about, influencing other people, and coming out of this time as we're finally kind of working our way out. People have been asking me kind of, how do I think about moving forward? And I came up with this formula that I find to be very, very helpful. So the first part of the formula is proven practice. And notice I don't say best practice. Proven, the difference between best practice and proven practice is lots of times best practice is somebody's opinion. Well, that school, that hospital, that person I met, they say that this is best practice. And it's kind of somebody's opinion or small group of people's opinions. But proven practice has data behind it, has facts behind it, has enough years of experience behind it. And you know what the proven practices are in your field. You know what they are. During these 20 months, innovations happened. New ideas happened. Just listening to our sponsor today, the whole AI being added to research and to wealth screening. So what innovations are out there that make sense to me, that we have the bandwidth to add? And the way you're going to increase some of that bandwidth, what are the unworthy activities that I need to get rid of? And that there are. There are things that people ask you to do that don't go anywhere. They're not worthy. What can we think about that we could, to make room for proven practice and innovations? How can we get rid of some unworthy activities or minimize them or find an easier way to get them done with less time? And that's going to equal success. Out of disruption comes opportunity. That's what happens with disruption. Opportunity. Proven practice plus innovations minus unworthy activities equals opportunity. And we often need people to help us. We can't always do it, no matter what position you're in. I've been from a, corporate and foundation relations giving officer to, major gift officer, principal gifts, director of development, VP. In all of those positions, I've always needed help. I've always needed to influence other people. And influencing is inspiring and enabling others to change. Inspire and enable, not tell. Okay. So the first thing you have to have is great clarity about what you're trying to achieve and why. Why is it important? Remember that list that we went over earlier? Is it mission critical? Is it in keeping with our values? Is it going to have a big return on investment? Be clear in your mind what you're trying to influence somebody to do, that you've got the clear why, the big why. Why is that important? How is that going to help all of us, not just me? So we're trying to increase how much money we raise, and we're trying to increase the number of, in the middle of our pyramid, we're trying to increase giving from middle donors. Our bottom is doing well, and we've got people concentrating on the top, but we have this problem in the middle. And so that's what we're trying to do. And in order to do that, we need to be able to know who those people are and analyze who they are, give people information so they can get on the road. And in order to do that, I need everybody to whatever it is that you're trying to get people to change, right? Tie it to the bigger picture, the bigger goal. What are you trying to achieve and why? Make sure that's really clear in your mind before you try to influence somebody to change. And then you have to think about who could make this happen. Who could change this? Who has the power to change this? Because that's the person I have to influence. Can I and do I understand that person's motivation and that person's ability? Because I need to know both. What's that person's motivation? What's their ability? You have to make sure the request is possible. Is it possible? If you're asking somebody to do something and they don't have the ability to do it, they don't have the capacity to do it, then you have to think about who else. Is there someone else? How good is the relationship? Because the better the relationship, the better your chances are for success to influence them. And think about for a minute, what goes into a good relationship? How do you know if you have a good relationship with somebody? What goes into a good relationship? How would you find out if you had a good relationship or not? What are the clues that you might look for? Just quick thoughts in the chat. What goes into a good relationship?
So we have trust, respect, communication, transparency, honesty. Bring ideas with no fear. I said chocolate. Ruthie, I think, said chocolate as well. Open body language, time, understanding the person, and solid foundation. True listening.
I love those. Those are great. Exactly right. So those are criteria that you would use to decide where on this continuum does this person that you're trying to influence, who has the power to make the change for you, where does that lie? And you want to make sure that the person you're trying to influence, you have a good relationship with them, or you have a champion who has a good relationship with them. You have a champion, right? So you want to know, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So the other things you want to know is what drives this person personally. What are her fears? We don't always realize, why might she say no? Because she's afraid of what, right? What language does she speak? right? Is she a facts person? Is she a story person? Is she a bottom line person? Is she an action person? You go to my husband, Bob, and you try to persuade him, you have to come in with facts. And if you tell too many stories, he's suspicious. You talk to me and you give me facts. Yeah, but you better have some stories that make it come alive for me. Right? Why might she want to help you? That's a great question to ask yourself. Just because the person has the power to help you, why might she? Why might she not? And so this is where champions and allies and sponsors come in. They, is there a champion is somebody who champions you on every level, verbally, openly. So maybe at a presentation, they might say, and Joanna and I were speaking, even though Joanna is like 3 rungs maybe down from this person. Joanna and I were speaking, and one of the points she made that was just excellent was, now you have championed her. You've told that person has told everybody that Joanna is valued and smart and worth, speaking about. That's what a champion does. An ally is somebody that is helping you strategize, helping you figure out, giving you those tips, helping you, let's think about this, let's try that. I'm willing to talk to her about this. I'll bring that too. A sponsor is often somebody who, they're all allies with different names, really, in a lot of ways, or champions in different ways. But a sponsor kind of puts you up for a promotion, recommends you for that task force. It tries to sponsor you to move things along. You need to find out who among champions, allies, and sponsors that you have, who among them has influence with the person you're trying to influence. These are people that can help you get to where you need to go. People skip this step. Before you approach somebody, you have to anticipate obstacles and then think about solutions to those obstacles. And help people see what the results is going to be. The answer to so what? So what if we do this? Go back to that big picture why. Why is this important? And share that destination. Get me excited about the outcome before you tell me about how we're going to get to that outcome. Remember what's in it for her. And this is a big one. When we come in with one solution to the problem, our solution, then we're kind of trying to sell, we're pitching. So here's what I think we need to do. We need to switch up the form. We need to switch up the process. We need to buy this product. Go in by saying, here's what we're trying to achieve. Here's the problem that I've run into. Can we think together about possible outcomes, possible solutions? Because now she's going to own it. She's going to own that solution rather than you pitching and she either buys your idea or she doesn't, or she says yes and then doesn't follow through. Brainstorm solutions and a pathway together, right? So identify the change that you want and make sure you know why it matters. Who has the ability? How well do you know her? And if you need to strengthen the relationship or it's not very strong, enroll champions, allies, and supporters. Share the destination. Anticipate obstacles, right? Agree on a path forward. So we have time for some more questions, and then I have some final thoughts. So please don't leave yet, because there's more. But let's look at some questions.
Yes, and we also want to, in a couple minutes, do the drawing up for your book giveaways as well. But Ruben Schmitz had the question about that proven ways, and how do you work with a supervisor or boss who has their own way to do it that might be contrary to what those proven ways are?
Yeah, so one of the first things you want to ask is, how important is this? right? Because if you're going to go and try and influence them, if you're going to go and try and change somebody's mind, you have to decide what's at risk, how important is it? So if it's really important from a mission point of view, if it's important from a bottom line point of view, then it's worth you bringing to your boss. If it's not, it's just your preference, or you just know it would make things a little easier, or, you got to weigh that. Is that worth going? And, is my boss the kind of person who's open to new ideas or not? But let's say it is important and you do want to influence the person about proven practice. So it's all the things that we've talked about. Do you have a champion who agrees with you? I would start there. Can you talk about the why, the outcome, not the practice, but the outcome that we're all trying to get to? And then you could say, one of the things that I've seen work, one of the things my colleagues across the market, I've talked to 5, 10 different organizations, and one of the things they all agree is that this really works. And I was wondering, from your perspective, how might we work some of that in our process? Rather than coming at it from a negative, your ideas are not working and they're really stupid. You want to come in from a, here's some things I've learned, here's some things that I see, and I wonder from your perspective how we might work those in. Because now it's not, I disagree, or you're not saying, do you agree or disagree? You're just saying, how do we make this work? How do we fit this in? Questions are really one of your superpowers.
That's wonderful. Christine Tabak was wondering if you could go back one slide. She was wanting to capture this on the act. Yep. And then another question is, how do you get champions, allies, and sponsors? And especially for people in this industry who sometimes are more doing the invisible work, how do you go ahead and get some people on your side?
I'm going to tell you about Constance French. So Constance French worked in the annual fund. And so she had, and I was VP. So she had her director of the annual fund above her. She had the director of development above her. And then she had me. And she decided that she was going to cultivate me. She was going to cultivate me to become an ally for her. And so what she would do is she noticed my comings and goings, and she would sort of time, we've talked about this, I wasn't aware of it while it was happening, but since then we've talked about it. But she would work out so that she was walking out of the office with me in the evening. She would work on it, so that our paths crossed at lunchtime. And she was always interested in how I was doing, not just how she was doing. And then she'd ask me questions. She'd say, I wonder what you think about this, or I've been thinking about that. She noticed that I liked chocolate and popcorn. So she would drop by and say, oh, can I talk to you for a few minutes? Here's a bowl of popcorn. Can I talk to you while you eat the popcorn? Bribes. I think you have to look at who do I want to cultivate? Who do I want to engage and be on my side? It's a great way to get mentors, and be interested in them. Don't just be interested in what they can do for you. Think about what could you do for them. And then just be your open, authentic self.
No, that's great. So we have another question, but I just wanted to say, do the giveaway, one of the book giveaways, and then we'll go back and do one more in a few minutes. But before we do the first book giveaway, we're really just so pleased to have you talk. And Apra Maryland is giving a gift of $50 in your honor to Easter Seals, Florida. And just really appreciate how you live with such generosity. So Karen, if you can pick a number 1 through 50, and that will be deciding who our first winner is.
32.
All right. So that is Terry Brickley. Terry, you are the winner of
Woohoo!
Karen's new book, Tangled Lies. So that will be coming your way. Another question that we have is Ian Turner, and he wanted to know, what are some ways to cultivate champions, allies, sponsors in the digital era with fewer in-person opportunities?
Yes, that's a great question. Everything we know works over Zoom. What happens is that we think of digitally, we think of it, and we forget the parts that we know, right? So can I, it's the end of a Zoom like this, and Joanna says to me, Karen, could you just stay on for a few minutes? I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Would that be all right? I just need 5 minutes of your time. Oh, sure, Joanna. And then she starts with, so before we jump into what I wanted to ask you, how are you doing? How are you making out? I know this was such a stressful day for you. I noticed. How are you doing? Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, thank you for asking. So what can I do for you? And then have a question that is within my power, and have a question that actually is a learner question. I'm really struggling, like the questions you guys have been asking me on the Q&A. Those are great questions to ask a champion. Now, this is what I was thinking about. This is kind of the way I was going to approach it, but I wonder what you think. And then remember to come back and say thank you. Remember, steward those relationships. Thank, recognize, thank again, share impact. Karen, this is what I did with the information that you gave me. And this is the results that happened. I just wanted to thank you again. Thank you so much. Right? Don't forget that stewardship is a huge, huge part of relationships. So should we pick another winner?
We should. Go ahead and 1 through 50 one more time.
Number 12.
Okay. That is Nancy Growley. So congratulations, Nancy, on winning a book.
And both winners, if you go on Amazon and see the description of my 2 books that are out, you could actually pick the one that you would prefer. So it could be the murder mystery Tangled Lies, or it could be my suspense story Getting It Right, and you could pick the one you want. Right? And just tell me which one, and I'll send you and you have to have your address, of course, and I'll send you a signed copy. I did want to just remind you that you have more power than you know. You have so much power, and you can do this. Don't forget to breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe. And then you can find me. I had mentioned to Joanna at the beginning, I'm Karen E. Osborne. So when you go to Amazon, there's this other Karen Osborne who has 2 books out also. So don't ask her for your free copy, because she's not going to send it. So I'm Karen E. Osborne, and you can find me at the Osborne Group. I will answer any questions that we didn't get a chance to get to, or you thought of afterwards. There's always free tools and stuff on our webpage, theosbornegroup.com. And then you can find the writer me at kareneosborne.com. And that's where you'll find about my new book that's coming out in June.
Yay, that's wonderful. I can't wait to read that one. And if everyone wants to make sure to check out Karen, I just showed a link for Tangled Lies. And Karen, thank you again just for your inspirational and timely message to everyone. We've gotten tons of thank yous in the chat. If you want to just review them a little bit before you head off to your next item in the day. With everyone else, Teresa Clark is going to take over as host, and we have the wonderful Jay Frost talking about data intelligence in both small and large shops, and that's going to start in just a minute. So thank you again, Karen, and you guys are all welcome to contact Karen if you do have any follow-up questions.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and please say hi to my friend Jay Frost.
I think he's already on, so you can actually say hi to him directly.
How are you? It's a great group, great questions.
You are awesome, Karen.
As you are. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Karen.